Welcome to Africa Decode, where we dive deep into African issues that mainstream media often overlooks. I am Babur Duang, and today we are examining a case that reveals everything wrong with politicized justice systems. Right now, in South Sudan, we are witnessing what can only be described as judicial farce. The trial of Dr. Riek Machar, the country's first vice president, has become a textbook example of how courts can be weaponized against political opponents. But this isn't just about one trial, this is about the complete breakdown of democratic institutions in one of the world's youngest nations. Let me paint you the picture of what is happening in Juba right now. Dr. Riek Machar isn't just any defendant, he's the first vice president of South Sudan, essentially the second most powerful person in the country. Yet, he's been dragged before a court in what appears to be a politically motivated prosecution. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean deeply disturbing. This trial has been adjourned 3 times already, not because of complex legal arguments or scheduling conflicts. No, because the prosecution literally came to court unprepared. The first adjournment, the prosecutors showed up without written materials. Imagine showing up to a job interview without your resume. That's essentially what happened here. The second adjournment, the defense team doing their job properly challenged the court's legal authority and composition. The prosecution needed time to prepare responses to basic constitutional questions. The third adjournment, the court needed time to read the submitted objections. But here's the kicker. The prosecution's main strategy was trying to eliminate 3 members of Machar's defense team, claiming they lack proper licensing. Folks, this isn't how justice works. This is how political theater works. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You are putting a sitting vice president on trial. In most democratic countries, there are specific procedures for dealing with allegations against high officials. In the United States, it's impeachment. In the UK, officials typically resign before facing criminal proceedings. In Germany, constitutional courts handle cases against federal officials. But in South Sudan, they are just dragging the first vice president into a regular criminal court like he's any other citizen. Here is what makes this even more problematic. The defense is arguing that Machar has legal immunity under the 2018 revitalized peace agreement. This isn't some technicality. This agreement was supposed to end years of brutal civil war. Think about it. If you can just ignore peace agreements whenever it's politically convenient, what incentive does anyone have to lay down their arms and participate in democratic processes? The deeper problem is when you prosecute opposition leaders using flawed legal processes, you are essentially telling them that the only way to be safe is to never give up power. This is literally how democracies die. Now let's talk about what happened before this trial even began and why it violates every international standards for justice. Under international law, specifically the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, anyone arrested must be brought before a judge promptly. We are talking 48 to 72 hours maximum. Dr. Machar has been held under house arrest for months, not days, not weeks, just months. South Sudan's own law says the period of arrest without a warrant is 24 hours, with possible extension to 2 weeks during investigation. Even by their own standards, this detention is illegal. But here's the really disturbing part. South Sudan's National Security Service has been given its sweeping power that operate completely outside constitutional mandate. They can arrest, detain, surveil, search, and seize essentially at will. Let's see international comparison. European Convention on Human Rights, 96 hours maximum before judicial review. US Constitution, without unnecessary delay, typically 48 hours. And South African Constitution is 48 hours maximum. South Sudan practice, indefinite detention. This isn't just a violation of international law, it's a violation of basic human dignity. Now let's examine how information is being controlled in this case, because this reveals the true nature of what's happening. The court initially said private media professionals would be allowed to cover the proceedings. Sound good, right? Transparency, open justice, all those democratic values we hold so dearly. But guess what happened? Until the very last session, it was only state-owned media broadcasting the trial, the SSBC. Why this matters? When you control the narratives, you control public opinion. State media in authoritarian systems doesn't report news, it creates propaganda. Yeah, I said propaganda. We have seen this playbook before, so now let's see it globally. Russia, independent media banned from covering opposition trials. In China, state media provides selective coverage of political cases. In Myanmar, military controls all information about political persecutions. So, to connect the dot, the pattern is that authoritarian regimes always promise transparency while simultaneously controlling information flow. They give you just enough access to create the illusion of openness while ensuring the narrative serves their political purposes. This isn't journalism, it is information warfare. Now let's talk about what these procedural failures tell us about South Sudan's judicial system and why this should concern everyone who cares about global democracy. Number one, no routine materials prepared. Number two, unable to respond to basic constitutional challenges. Number three, primary strategy is eliminating defense lawyers rather than proving their case. Number four, repeated requests for adjournment due to unpreparedness. Allowing indefinite detention without proper legal basis, failing to ensure prosecution competence before proceeding, not addressing fundamental constitutional questions, allowing what appears to be harassment of defense counsel. So, compare this to international standards. International Criminal Court requirements. Number one, comprehensive case preparation before proceedings begins. Number two, strict adherence to due process rights. Number three, independent judicial oversight. And number four, protection of defense rights. European Court of Human Rights standards are right to adequate time and facilities for defense preparation, right to legal assistance without interference, right to be tried within reasonable time, right to public hearing by independent tribunal. So what we are seeing in South Sudan, trial by ambush rather than prepared prosecution. Number two, harassment of defense counsel. Number three, indefinite delays due to institutional incompetence. Number four, political interference in judicial process. This isn't just poor administration, this is systematic failure of the rule of law. Now, I want to address something that might seem minor but actually reveals everything about how this court views constitutional governance. The judge asked the first vice president of South Sudan to identify himself, as if a vice president could somehow be from another country or be an imposter. This might seem like a small thing, but it's actually deeply significant. Why this matters? When you humiliate constitutional office holders in court, you are not just disrespecting individuals, you are degrading the entire constitutional order. In functional democracies, let's say US, even when officials face legal proceedings, their constitutional office is respected. In UK, proper protocol maintained, even during political scandals. South Africa, Constitutional Court maintains dignity while ensuring accountability. This public humiliation sends a message. Constitutional positions mean nothing if you are not politically aligned with those in power. It's saying, we don't just want to defeat you politically, we want to strip you of dignity and legitimacy. This is how democratic institutions are systematically destroyed. So, what does all this mean for South Sudan? And why should international community care? Number one is complete erosion of rule of law. Number two, breakdown of the 2018 peace agreement. Number three, potential return to civil conflict. And number four, international isolation and aid suspension. This set precedents for other fragile states. Number two, demonstrates how peace processes can be undermined. Number 3, it shows how courts can be weaponized against democracy. So in cases like this, what does the international community do? Number 1 is diplomatic pressure and sanctions. Number 2, suspension of aid programs, travel bans on officials, asset freezes, international court referrals. So the fundamental question, can a country that systematically violates rule of law, constitutional governance, and human rights be considered legitimate members of the international community? This case isn't just about Dr. Riek Machar. It is about whether South Sudan will become a functioning democracy or remain a failed state where might makes right. The answer to that question will determine whether millions of South Sudanese have any hope for peace, prosperity, and basic human dignity. That's all for today's episode. If this analysis was valuable to you, please like, subscribe, and share. Democracy doesn't defend itself, we have to defend it. I'm Babur Duang, and I will see you next time on Africa Decode.